Aston Villa are nipping on the heels of the Premier League's top clubs. They have started this season brilliantly and they are scoring goals galore. It has got people asking a very intriguing question. Is this Villa side a legitimate top 4 contender? Well, let's try and answer that question, and let's start with this chart. It is a 10-game rolling average for expected goals for and against. And if you're not quite sure what you're looking at here, it's not that scary, I promise you. The important thing is that the blue line is above the red line and the bit of colour in here is blue, not red. That means that the expected goals for are consistently above the expected goals against. Now, the good thing for Villa is that those expected goals are being converted into goals. They're scoring absolutely tons of them, and those goals are winning them games, which means they're getting loads and loads and loads and loads of points. Now, over the course of the calendar year in 2023, which is close to a full season now, 34 games played, Aston Villa have 68 points under Unai Emery this year. That's a 2 points per game ratio. In this theoretical fake table, they are below Arsenal on goal difference. Obviously, City are clear, but they are firmly wedged in this top 4 conversation. Now, to achieve this level of consistency with results over the back half of last season and the first bit of this season is genuinely remarkable, because Unai Emery has had no consistency on the pitch whatsoever to call upon. He has had to constantly change and tweak this team, which I think is really impressive. Now, on the board here, we have what was essentially a common lineup from last season when Villa rose up on that winning streak and snuck into 7th and got into Europe. This is roughly the sort of team that you would see. You've got Mings and Konsa here at centre-back, Moreno over at left-back, Ramsey on the left wing, Buendia here as the number 10, Cash at right-back. This was the setup. It was a 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 if you wanted to call it that. And what they did really well was they scored early. And actually Villa scored the joint most goals in the first 15 minutes of games last season, 13 goals. And what that meant was they were in control of proceedings from there. So then, once they got the first goal, Konsa would stand here at the back, put his studs on the ball, like Brighton do, as our friend John McKenzie has often talked about, and he would invite pressure towards him. He'd flick the ball out over to Tyrone Mings, and Tyrone Mings would have these passing lanes available. Suddenly, you've got players like Watkins running in behind, you've got Buendia here between the lines, and they were consistently flooding forward through in those really quick combinations and compounding the issue. One goal, second goal follows, third goal follows. There was a game against Newcastle late in the season at Villa Park. They used Newcastle's really aggressive press against them, flicked the ball out here and out and back up here, and they won 3-0. It was an absolutely remarkable game of football. It was a great example of what can happen if you score early and then you control the destiny of the game. So that was last season. Now fast forward into this season and quite a lot has changed that is beyond Emery's control. First of all, he's lost his left side. That Alex Moreno and Jacob Ramsey combination was crucial at the back half of last season, and you come to this season, Luca Dean's in place, and more often than not, it's Zaniolo on the left-hand side as well, because both Moreno and Ramsey have missed all of the football more or less so far this season. So he's had to completely reimagine the left side, probably shift the emphasis over to the right-hand side using Matty Cash and John McGinn. He's also brought in some new signings, Pau Torres in at centre-back on the left because Tyrone Mings obviously tore his ACL, Moussa Diaby playing here just off Watkins because Emery Buendia tore his ACL. There's been a lot of hits. It's been difficult. And all the while, Emery has been trying to transition Villa into a more ball-dominant team. What I mean by that is less reactive and more assertive in possession. I think what he thinks is that for Villa to be a consistently top team, they need to control the ball more often than not. Now, you can measure that with a very simple statistic. The average possession from last season to this season under Unai Emery has gone up 49.7% to 53.6%. So a 4% upswing in average possession per game. That is clear that Emery wants his team to have more of the ball and be more assertive in possession. Now, that transition has not come without issue, and there have been a couple of games this season where Villa have been really caught out, and you could argue they sort of bit off more than they could chew early on as they were adjusting. Here's a scene from the game against Liverpool at Anfield, obviously a really tough place to go, and Pau Torres in this position where Liverpool have pressed nice and high, have closed off all of his passing lanes, has decided to try and dribble past Mohamed Salah, which doesn't work very well at all. He loses the ball, manages to smuggle it out for a corner, the corner comes in and they concede. They're a goal down in 3 minutes. And this was a scenario where Villa were playing out at all costs, even under intense pressure. And you do have to think that over the last couple of months, they've managed to adjust to that and try and pick their opportunities a little bit more carefully. Again, just part of the adjustment process. Now, here's another issue, and it's a scene, I've got a couple of scenes for you actually, from the opening game of the season against Newcastle, where they're pushing up really, really high and being really aggressive in midfield. And this in particular, this is Boubacar Kamara pushing all the way up and hunting for this ball. He doesn't get it. The ball is flipped round and Villa are counter-attacked against. Same game, same issue. Boubacar Kamara, I'm not picking on him, I swear, it's just the guy that got it wrong in this game, unfortunately. Pushes up against Anthony Gordon. Gordon knocks the ball past him, pushes straight past him. Another massive counter-attack for Newcastle. This was not going well at all. Boubacar Kamara in particular seemed to be struggling a little bit, pushing really high up and trying to trap teams in. So Unai Emery made an adjustment. Off the back of the international break in September, Villa played Crystal Palace at home, having just been beaten 3-0 at Anfield, and he decided to move Boubacar Kamara and change his role. So when Villa are now on the ball, they shift out of this kind of 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, and into what is more of a 3-5-2. So Konsa becomes the central centre-back, Torres pushes here, Kamara drops all the way out into this position here and vacates the midfield and pushes all the way back. Cash goes up here, Luca Dean comes up here, they become wing-backs. Zaniolo tucks in with McGinn, Douglas Luiz becomes the central point of midfield, Diaby joins Watkins in a genuine front two, and it creates a 3-5-2. Cash and Luca Dean are wing-backs responsible for the wide areas and for the width. Kamara can cover this channel, which has been a bit of a problem, particularly when Cash pushes forward, because he used to play right back and right centre back for Marseille, so it's a really good fit for his positional skills. And then you've got Torres here, has room to pass, he has room to dribble and carry the ball forward. You've got a solid blocking midfield. And finally, McGinn is probably better than Boubacar Kamara here at pushing up and engaging teams really high up and engaging players and trapping them and making sure that he isn't beaten so that Villa returned and counter-attacked upon. So this is now how Villa play. And this happened 4 or 5 games into the season, having already lost the whole left side and 2 players to ACL injuries within the first 2 weeks of the season. He's managed to shift everything in this team and create a new style of play that works. And so when you see Villa fans talking up Unai Emery and you see Villa fans talking up his credentials and you think, he's not that good, he wasn't great at Arsenal, this is what they mean. The consistency of the points over the course of the calendar year is exceptional. And then adding in the fact that they've suffered 4 major injuries, consistently won results, reimagined the team, and then continued to get results. This is good coaching, and this is good management. And this is why Villa are in this conversation, because their manager is a bit of a genius. Now, Villa fans are probably hoping that that's it. That's the end of the conversation. That's it, right? Unfortunately, there's more to get to, and there are some negatives. We have to balance the conversation, and we have to talk about Aston Villa's away form, because it's just simply not good enough. And they will need to improve it if they do want to continue this charge into that top 4. Here is the disparity between the home and away form in the Premier League games so far this season. Obviously at home it's a perfect 6 from 6. Away from home, not quite. 2 wins, a draw, and 3 losses. The goals are way down. The expected goal difference is really poor compared to at home, and obviously the points per game, 1.17. It's not good enough. It needs a bit of a hike. There's a big reason for this. There's a very simple reason that Villa are so poor away from home. I think it lies in game state, which is what we talked about earlier on when we talked about Villa surging out into leads and controlling games. Well, when they play away from home, the exact opposite is happening, and their great friend from last year has become their biggest enemy this season. Here are the away games they've played this season in all competitions, because it includes the Europa Conference League, and here is the minute that the first goal that they have conceded comes in. Newcastle, 6 minutes. Liverpool and Legia Warsaw, 3 minutes. Nottingham Forest, 5 minutes. They have lost all of those games. They haven't lost any of the others. So they can stay in the game more than 6 minutes, apparently. They're okay. But when they start slow away from home, something happens. And when they get into that losing game state, they cannot recover. They need to figure that out. Whether it's starting fast and hunting that first goal again, or simply just not conceding immediately, if they fix this, they'll look even better and their top 4 tilt will look even stronger. There's one more element to add to this conversation, and it's Villa are in Europe. And come February or March, if they're still in Europe, which we expect them to be, they might need to start prioritising. Now, depending on what's happened over a hectic Christmas period, Villa may find themselves actually prioritising Europe, prioritising winning the Europa Conference League. A piece of silverware would not go down badly with the fan base at all. But if the top 4 chase is still on come March, maybe Thursdays take a back seat in a way we wouldn't have expected them to early in the season, and Villa actually go for the top 4. So depending on where they are in February and March and what the priorities are, will determine how long they can go in the league. Although what I will say is, if they don't fix the away form, they won't be in touch with the top 4 come March. So that has to change for Villa to really consider any of this.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.